Hey guys, I'm Mia Pamaraju.
I'm Kevin Zane.
I'm Tanya Parikh.
And I'm Partha Thode.
And welcome to the podcast. Today we're talking about how housing affordability in North Carolina and why so many young people feel so stressed about it right now.
Yeah, because it honestly feels like prices just keep going up and up each and every year.
And it's not just houses either. Apartments, rent, dorms, literally everything is getting expensive.
So for this episode, we interviewed Mr. S, our macroeconomics teacher, plus Emma and Hannah from UNC and YPA to hear different perspectives.
Let's dive into segment 1. Why is housing so expensive? One thing Mr. S talked about was how RTP and the Triangle area have grown super fast because of all the jobs here.
Yeah, he mentioned companies like SAS and Cisco bringing in more people because of job opportunities.
Which is good for the economy, but it also means way more people are competing for housing.
And when demand goes up faster than supply, prices naturally increase.
Mr. S also said that even years ago, houses were getting sold almost immediately after being listed.
Which honestly surprises me because if it was already competitive back then, it makes sense why it feels impossible now.
Especially for young people who are just starting careers and don't already have savings.
Mr. S even said that most young adults probably can't buy a home immediately unless they have financial support from family.
This brings us to segment 2, how students are affected. So Emma Corbett's interview honestly stood out to me because she talks about how hard she's worked just to afford rent.
Yeah, she said she worked like 2 jobs throughout college while also being a full-time student.
And even after all that, she still feels like taking out loans is unavoidable.
That part really shows how difficult things are getting for students and young adults.
She also talked about how Chapel Hill housing is way more expensive than Greenville because it's closer to RTP.
Which just shows how economic growth can make areas less affordable at the same time.
And Emma said rent increased basically every year she was in college.
So even students who are budgeting carefully still feel like they're falling behind.
That brings us into segment 3, possible solutions. So something that Emma and Hannah mentioned was zoning laws.
Basically, there are laws that control what kind of housing can be built in certain places.
Right now, a lot of areas mainly allow single-family homes instead of apartments or duplexes.
Which limits the amount of affordable housing available for younger people.
So Emma called things like duplexes and townhomes middle housing, which honestly makes a lot of sense.
Because most young adults don't need giant houses right after college.
They just need affordable places to live near work or school.
They also talked about ADUs, or accessory dwelling units, which are smaller living spaces connected to homes.
So then this brings us to a conclusion. Overall, in these interviews, made it crystal clear that housing affordability is becoming a major issue for young people in North Carolina.
And it affects way more than just buying a house someday.
It impacts education, jobs, independence, and even mental health.
And if prices keep rising faster than wages, it'll probably keep getting harder for future generations as well.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you guys in the next episode. Welcome back, everybody. Today, we're going to be focusing more specifically on college housing and why students are struggling to find affordable places to live.
Especially in college towns like Chapel Hill, where demand is super high.
After interviewing Emma and Hannah, we realized how stressful the housing process has become for students.
For example, people are signing leases almost a year before they even move in.
Let's go into segment 1, finding housing. So Hannah explained that UNC only requires students to live on campus for 1 year, and that's typically their first year they're in college or their freshman year.
So after freshman year, most students need to find off-campus housing.
But there aren't enough affordable options available close to campus.
Hannah said she signed her lease in October for the next school year, which is honestly pretty crazy.
She also mentioned that she got lucky finding housing through connections from her brother.
Which kind of just shows how competitive and random the process can feel at times.
She even said that if her friend didn't have an extra spot available, she didn't know what she would have done.
Now that really shows how stressful housing insecurity can become for students.
That brings us to segment 2, the cost of living. Another big thing for both Hannah and Emma that what they talked about was how expensive rent has become.
Emma said she always lived with roommates because it was the cheapest option.
And even with roommates plus 2 jobs, she still struggled financially.
Hannah also said her parents originally had a housing budget, but eventually they just wanted her to find somewhere to live.
That part honestly stood out to me because it shows how limited the options are becoming.
Especially in places where housing demand is super high.
And Hannah mentioned that UNC has even had issues with overcrowding in dorms.
So students are almost being pushed into the off-campus market even though it's expensive.
That brings us to segment 3, the long-term effects. So one thing that Hannah said that really stuck with me in the interview process was how young people are staying financially dependent on their parents longer.
Because rent, tuition, and loans all add up at the same time.
And it can change major life decisions too, like where people go to school or work.
In addition, Hannah said that housing costs affect where she wants to apply to law school in the future.
Which is honestly really sad because opportunities shouldn't depend so heavily on something so trivial as rent.
Emma also mentioned how discouraging it feels to work constantly and still feel behind financially.
Especially when saving money barely feels like it makes a difference anymore.
So essentially, housing doesn't just affect finances. It affects stress and future planning too.
In conclusion, housing affects way more than just where people sleep at night.
It affects education, opportunities, and independence.
And right now, college students are feeling that pressure earlier than ever before.
Hopefully, more people start paying attention to how serious this issue is becoming for younger generations.
Thank you guys for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Welcome back, everyone. Today we're talking about possible solutions to the housing crisis and whether policy changes could actually help.
Because while everyone talks about the problem, fixing it is obviously much harder.
But our interviews brought up some interesting ideas that could help long term.
Especially when it comes to zoning laws and affordable housing development.
That brings us into segment 1, zoning reform. One thing that both Hannah and Emma strongly agreed on was zoning reform.
Basically, there are laws that limit what kinds of housing can be built in certain places.
Right now, many places allow single-family homes instead of apartments or duplexes.
Which reduces the amount of affordable housing available for younger people.
Hannah also said that as cities continue growing, zoning laws need to change too.
Otherwise, places like Raleigh will keep growing economically without enough housing supply.
And that just keeps pushing prices higher and higher.
Especially for students and young professionals entering the workforce.
Segment 2, which is about middle housing and ADUs. So Emma talked a lot about middle housing.
Which includes things like duplexes, townhomes, and apartments.
Housing that's more realistic for younger adults who aren't ready to buy houses yet.
She also mentioned ADUs, or accessory dwelling units.
These are basically smaller living spaces attached to existing homes like garage apartments.
Mr. S thought that tax incentives for homeowners who create those spaces could actually help.
Because it creates more housing without needing massive new developments everywhere.
And it can help increase affordability slowly over time.
Segment 3, what lawmakers miss. Another thing that Hannah brought up was how lawmakers focus more on adults buying homes rather than young people renting apartments.
Which honestly makes a lot of sense because college students are already struggling financially before even starting their careers.
And everything feels more competitive now. Housing, jobs, internships, all of it.
Hannah talked about how that competition makes it easier for landlords or companies to take advantage of people.
Because they know young people are desperate for opportunities and housing.
And that pressure can make people feel stuck financially for years.
Especially when wages don't increase as fast as rent prices.
So clearly, there's not one perfect solution, but policy changes should still make a difference.
I think that the biggest takeaway from these interviews is that the issue's only going to grow if nothing changes.
And it's important that young people are included in conversations about housing policy.
Because we're the generation that's going to deal with all these effects the longest.
And hearing real stories from students makes the issue feel way more real than just looking at statistics.
Thank you guys for listening, and hopefully conversations like this will continue outside of school too.